So, I did a video about a month ago now, I think, where I talked about how I had a 40-team NHL. And then, that was for my own enjoyment and self-torture. So, I thought about it since then, and what would a 40-team NHL actually look like? And where could the NHL actually go? So, we're not talking about what I had in my fantasy world. We're talking about realistically. Focus. If the NHL added 8 teams beyond Seattle, so 9 teams beyond what they have now, what would they look like? So the West, and I didn't move anybody. So the West, you have Vancouver, you have Calgary, Edmonton, Las Vegas, San Jose, LA, Anaheim, and Arizona. Now, assuming that you're going to add 2 expansion teams, because each division / conference would be 10 teams, you're adding Seattle and Portland. Now, Portland, for me, narrowly beats out San Diego. And you could make the argument that San Diego would work better than Portland. This division, suddenly travel becomes pretty good for the teams in the West. For decades, seemingly a century. If you're East, you have a better schedule than those out West. If you're in the West, you're kind of screwed. Okay, so the Central. Now remember, the Central currently has 7 teams, so I'll need to add 3, right? So we have Chicago, Nashville, Minnesota, Colorado, St. Louis, Winnipeg, Dallas. That's your current 7 teams in the Central. So who are we adding? And I made them much smaller than I did in the Pacific / West. Okay, so Central. So I'm adding Kansas City because they have an arena. They just don't have an owner. Houston because they're a huge market and I think they'd support the NHL. And Salt Lake City because Utah doesn't have a team. And they've proven in the past they can support junior hockey or not junior hockey, minor league hockey. Now, Milwaukee gets an honorable mention. Milwaukee, much the same situation. They don't get a lot of credit, and I'm not leaving Milwaukee out of this because I don't like Milwaukee or some kind of a conspiracy. I just don't have Milwaukee in this. You could easily take out Salt Lake City and decide to have Milwaukee as the 10th team in the Central. It really wouldn't make a huge difference for me. I don't have an emotional stake in this. Now we're getting to the East. You have the New York Rangers, New York Islanders, New Jersey, Columbus, Pittsburgh, Philly. I didn't move anybody, right? No, I didn't. Carolina and Washington. So those are your 8 teams. What did I miss? No, that's 8. That's right. All right. My math isn't off yet. Adding 2 teams is interesting. So there's an attempt being made by the city of Hartford, at least there was last year, to try to get hockey back. Because of the iconic look of the team, because of that beautiful jersey and logo combination, there are plenty of us who pine for the Hartford Whalers, even though the team on the ice wasn't very good for most of its existence. And if the city of Hartford can get an NHL-ready arena instead of the $15,000 or 15,000-seat arena they had when the NHL left in 97, they will get back in. So it's a matter of them building a new arena. So for this scenario, they're building a new arena. And then the 10th team is the second team in Toronto. Okay, there's been talk about it and whether or not the Maple Leafs would ever allow it to happen. and whether or not that's an actual thing. So whether or not a franchise can actually block a team coming in. The NHL stated at the time there is no such entity. There's no such scenario where a team can block another team from being entered into the NHL. They may get paid off by the NHL for allowing it. They can't actually block a team coming into their backyard. If the NHL says, yep, we're putting a team there, like one of the expansion opportunities could be that the Minnesota Wild play in St. Paul. You could put a team in Minneapolis. And the Wild couldn't block it. Now, do I think it would work? Probably. But it could be a little bit dicey to have Minnesota area supporting 2 NHL teams instead of 1. So the last division you got is the Atlantic, or whatever you want to call it. You got Tampa Bay, Ottawa, Montreal, Toronto, Buffalo, Detroit, Florida, and Boston. And that's your 8 teams. And I'm going to come back to Toronto in a second. Okay? Your expansion in this division, Hamilton and Quebec City. You're right or wrong by bringing back the Nordiques. And Hamilton is absolutely capable of supporting a franchise. There's no reason they can't. Hamilton would work. Now, coming back to Toronto, why do I have them in a separate division than the other Toronto team? Because I think that might make it slightly more palatable to Maple Leafs management. That it's not a division rival, and for the new Toronto team, they can build rivalries with the rest of the East. Now, scheduling gets a little bit tricky too. With that scenario, the NHL going to 40 teams, it means that you will see only teams in the West or teams in the East. There will be no more back and forth and all across the continent, which means these teams never have to play in the West. These teams never have to play in the East. Travel gets easier, and players have a lot less to complain about. Depending on who you talk to, either the NHL is going to stop at 32, or the NHL has this grandiose idea that they'll have 40 teams. And the 40-team idea goes back quite a ways. It goes back to the idea of having 30 NHL teams in North America and 10 overseas. 10 in Europe. And them looking at cities like Stockholm and Zurich and Berlin, London, Paris, and saying, we can do this. We can make NHL work in Europe. And in the end, it was ignored and kind of shunted aside in favor of some sanity. But trust me, if the NHL is going to get a minimum of $500 million for each of these teams coming in, they're probably going to take it. Because they love their money. And the perception that more teams equals a better league. It would absolutely water down the talent pool, and I'm not saying it wouldn't. I'm just saying if the NHL ever went to 40 teams, and whether that's 10 years, 20 years, 30 years from now, that's how I would envision it looking. I think we'd get more Canadian teams, because you kind of have to. And I think we'd have more of a traditional approach. Notice none of these teams are in weird southern locations. Houston isn't exactly a weird southern location. I'm looking at northern cities in the States and cities in Canada. More of a stable, these franchises, these markets will work kind of idea, rather than, hey, let's try Louisiana. Hey, why don't we try Puerto Rico? Hey, Mexico City's got to work, right? No. None of that crap. I'm just trying to be reasonable. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And again, this is just a fun idea. This is just what if the NHL went to 40 teams. This is what I think. And again, this Toronto team, yeah, you could probably put them here. And then you got to move Detroit over here. And the problem with that would be then you'd have 3 expansion teams here. And Detroit here, you'd only have 1 expansion team, and that'd be Hartford. You'd be setting up the Whalers for another run, much like they had the first time around, which wasn't anything to write home about. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, and thank you so much for watching. This is just kind of a fun thing. And hey, in the comment section below, how about you guys name these teams? Give me their names. Let me know which one works best, and just have some fun with it. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.